If you think school quality is mostly about teachers or test scores, this video is gonna mess with that assumption. Because what people usually call better schools often has less to do with education and more to do with economics. There's a reason some school districts always seem to have more, and it's not something most people are ever directly told. When I first learned about how school funding actually works, it completely changed how I look at our schools. If you missed that video, I'll link it below. So today I want to show you what I learned and why it matters when you're choosing where to live. If you're new here, hi, I'm Chris Rainwaters, your favorite real estate witch and a licensed realtor here in Southern California. I encourage people to look beyond the listings and test scores and really understand the places that they're choosing to build their lives. Because there are forces shaping our schools and communities that most of us were never taught to look for, even though we feel their impact every day. One of the biggest forces shaping school quality has nothing to do with what happens inside classrooms and everything to do with the classroom itself. In states like California, school facilities are funded locally. That means buildings, campuses, and major upgrades are not paid for evenly across the state. A district's ability to fund those things depends largely on local property values, development patterns, and how infrastructure costs are distributed over time. This is why two districts operating under the same state rules can look very different on the ground. It's not because one cares more or because these teachers are trying harder than these teachers. It's structural. It's the system, man. Here's one of the biggest examples that people don't realize they're looking at. When you see brand new neighborhoods with brand new schools, that's often because the cost of that was built into the development itself. So in many newer communities, buyers pay an additional assessment, often called Mello-Roos. That money helps fund things like roads, utilities, public infrastructure, and sometimes schools. Older neighborhoods don't have that built-in funding structure, which is also why it's easier to find new homes without Mello-Roos that exist in those types of neighborhoods. Duh, right? They're relying on systems and buildings that were designed and built decades ago. What people often call better schools frequently reflects a stronger local funding base. School quality often mirrors local economics more than educational philosophy. As areas grow and attract investment, their capacity to fund shared systems like schools changes too. This is where Vista becomes an interesting case study. Vista sits within North County, San Diego, a region shaped by a mix of coastal affluence, legacy inland wealth, and long-standing agricultural communities. And like a lot of places in California, the areas we now think of as established didn't always look the way they do today. My dad used to talk about how Rancho Santa Fe was once bean fields, how Newport Beach up in Orange County was once a working fishing town. Not exactly the image people hold of it now. Those places didn't become what they are overnight. They changed as land use shifted, development patterns evolved, and people made different choices about where they wanted to live. Vista reflects a similar kind of transition, not because it's copying those places, but because it sits inside a region where land, lifestyle, and access are being re-evaluated. It has space, proximity to the coast, access to major corridors, and as many people get more intentional with their money, wanting more land, more balance, more quality of life, places like Vista begin to play a different role in the region. If you want to see the numbers, I already made a video about that. I'll link it below for you. So when that happens, it doesn't just affect housing, it affects infrastructure, schools, and a community's ability to invest locally. As a community's economic role shifts, so does its capacity to support shared systems like education. This isn't abstract. The city of Vista recently released a public video outlining how long-term planning, fiscal discipline, and infrastructure investment have shaped the city over the last decade. I'll link that in the description too, because it shows something important. When a city plans carefully over time, it creates stability. And stability is what allows communities to support schools and shared resources without constantly playing defense. That's how places change, slowly, intentionally, and structurally. This matters because when you choose where to live, you're choosing into a funding structure, whether you realize it or not. Schools don't exist in isolation. They reflect the economic patterns, planning decisions, and long-term choices of the place that they're a part of. And here in Vista, some of those not so great choices were made decades ago. Many of our schools were built in an era that prioritized speed, capacity, and cost over longevity. That's why today we're dealing with aging systems like plumbing, electrical, facilities that simply weren't designed to last 60 plus years. But what matters isn't where those decisions started. It's how a community responds once it understands the reality of what it inherited. What Vista is doing now is different. The focus has shifted toward rebuilding sustainability, planning ethically, and making investments that are meant to serve not just students today, but students decades from now. That's what forward-thinking community investment actually looks like. What this means is that choosing where to live isn't just about school rankings or test averages. It's about understanding the systems that that place is built on. Here's the deeper point. School quality is rarely just about what happens in classrooms. It's tied to the whole infrastructure of a place. So when a community has stable planning, consistent reinvestment, and a strong tax base, it shows up everywhere. Streets, parks, public services, and eventually schools. When a place was built fast or built in an era with different standards, you feel that too. Aging systems, deferred maintenance, and constant catch-up. As someone who bought a mid-century modern fixer, I really feel that sentence. That's why two districts can sit under the same state rules and still feel completely different in real life. When people talk about good school districts, they're often responding to the results of long-term planning, not just what's happening inside classrooms today. Once you see that, you stop asking whether a district is good and start asking where it's been, how it's built, and where it's going. So I'll ask you this. Are you moving into a place that's only reacting to problems as they show up, or one that's planning ahead, even when the work is slow and unglamorous? School quality doesn't come from one decision or one policy. It comes from a pattern of choices made over time. Choices made by humans about land, infrastructure, and shared responsibly. And once you see that, it fundamentally changes how you evaluate every place you consider living. At the end of the day, this isn't about finding a perfect school district. It's about understanding the kind of place that you're stepping into, the way a community plans, the way it maintains what it builds, the way it responds when systems age, shift, or fall behind. Schools are a part of that story, but so is infrastructure, lifestyle, and the long-term health of the place that you're choosing to call home. Once you understand that, you stop looking for simple rankings and start seeing patterns. And those patterns tell you far more about what daily life will actually feel like for you and for your kids. That's the lens I use. And if it's helpful for how you think about where you live now or where you'll live next, you're in the right place. If this kind of systems level explanation is helpful, subscribe. This is how I break things down here in Southern California. And if you want help evaluating neighborhoods with this full context in mind, schools, infrastructure, and long-term sustainability, you can schedule time with me using the link below. One optional thing to know is that when you work with me, 20% of my earnings go directly into a local nonprofit of your choice, often connected to schools. It's one way to invest in the community you're becoming part of without ever having to do anything extra. Well, except work with me, and I am a little extra. Thanks for spending this time with me. I hope this gave you a little more clarity, not just about schools, but about the places that we build our lives in. I'll see you in the next one, but hopefully sooner.